Hey, good afternoon, everyone. Ah, Live na tayo. Okay, so visible na ba yung screen? And yung sounds natin, audio, okay lang? Okay, good afternoon. So where are the others? 17. Okay, so kumusta yung quiz? Kumusta yung quiz ninyo? So far, malaki naman yung mga scores ninyo no, sa quiz. Maganda naman yung performance nyo and I hope genuine talaga yung pagsagot nyo doon, no? Okay, so magpo-post sana ako ng solution sa quiz ninyo but as I see sa results, maganda naman yung performance niyo. No? So, no need na. Okay? I will not post na lang ang solution. Okay. So, ngayon, uh, discuss tayo. Forces pa rin, no? And dito, moment of a force. Coplanar pa rin yung i-discuss natin. Okay? So, later na sa maybe next meeting, mag-discuss tayo ng spatial or forces in space. Okay? So, yung schedule ng prelim natin is, I think that is September 20, no? I am not mistaken, September 20. So, expect tayo by next week prelim exam na kayo, no? So, I'll be doing lectures today and by Wednesday. Be doing lectures today and by Wednesday. Okay, so yung iba hindi pa wala pa dito yung iba, no? Okay, sige lang. I'll be giving activity mamaya that will serve as your class standing or attendance for today, no? Mamaya, class activity. Okay, good afternoon sa lahat. So again, as you can see in your screen, moment of a force, container force yung discuss natin. So let's formally begin our discussion. Okay, so moment of a force. So ano ba yung moment? No? So hindi ito yung literal moment na alam natin, no? Moment, for example, at a moment. Or ano ba yung ibig sabihin ng moment para sa inyo? That is yung sandali, no? Sandali. Yan yung moment na ibig sabihin natin in English. But dito sa statics of rigid bodies, we define moment as the rotation. Okay? Suppose we have here a body, no, a straight body. Let's say this is a beam or a lever, and acted by a force P at this end of this lever or beam at a distance d from point O. And they are perpendicular to each other. Okay? So yung ibig sabihin ng moment, that is the rotation of rotation of the force about a specific point. So in this case, if you want to calculate the moment of the force P about point O, that will be just P times the perpendicular distance D. And ito yung animation natin dyan para mas maiintindihan. Okay? So balik natin. If this force P act on this lever, iikot yan at point O. Ito yung animation natin, no? So, yung moment na mai-induce dyan, moment is force times perpendicular distance of the force to the point of interest. So, dito yung point of interest natin is O sa ating figure, no? So that would be P, force P times the perpendicular distance D. Okay? So mathematically expressed, we can say that is M is equals to F times D. Again, perpendicular dapat yung force natin to the point of interest. Let's say point O. So ito yung moment. Moment is the rotation. And specifically, that is the moment about point O. Tawagin natin yung moment as M. Denote natin yung moment as M. Okay? Now, dito sa moment, yung direction natin or yung, let's say the sign, is not, dito, hindi natin yan ma-determine according sa direction of the force, no? But instead, the sign of the moment is determined according to the rotation. Okay? So let's say, for uniformity, ang gagamitin natin, for counterclockwise rotation or moment, gamitin natin siya as positive. Okay? And for clockwise rotation or clockwise moment, let's say that is negative. Okay? For uniformity. But, again, no? Pwede rin gamitin mong clockwise as positive, counterclockwise as negative. It can be either way. It's up to you, no? But to follow na lang the rotation, angle in standard position, we know that the rotation in the angle of standard position, that is counterclockwise from the x-axis. Okay? So, gagamitin na lang natin ito for uniformity sa atin. Lalong-lalo na sa exam natin. Positive for counterclockwise movement, negative for clockwise moment. Okay? Okay, para mas maintindihan, let's have an example. Okay. Calculate the moment produced by a 10 Newton force at point A. Okay. We want to calculate the moment produced by this inclined force 50 degrees to the horizontal about A. Okay? So by definition, moment is equals to force times perpendicular distance to the point of interest. So ang gagamitin natin na distance is dapat perpendicular sa force na ito towards the point of interest. So dito sa problem na, natin, we'll calculate the moment at point A or the rotation at point A. Okay? So as you can see, by geometry, makukuha natin yung D, yung distance D by considering this right triangle. Right? So that is a right triangle. So how do we solve that? I-open ko muna yung math guide natin. So, paano natin masosolve yung rotation at point A? So, again, force times distance. By definition, moment is equals to force times the perpendicular distance. So, kunin muna natin yung ating distance D. So, again, by the right triangle shown there, we can have, diba, sine of 50 degrees is equals to yung D natin dyan, that is the opposite of the angle, no? So, that is equals to D over 3 meters. Okay? So, that calculating D, that would be equal to 3 sine of 50 degrees. Of course, that should be in meters. Okay? So, basically, the moment of the force about A is equal to the 10 Newton load multiplied by the distance D, 2.298 meters. Okay, and the moment at A is equals to, the unit for this is Newtons meters. Okay, so what would be the rotation? So notice the rotation of this one should be like this one. no? Should be counterclockwise. I mean clockwise rotation. The moment at A, the moment produced by this 10 Newton load at point A is clockwise. Okay? So, pwede natin iyang lagyan ng so this is clockwise. Okay? So, di ba, as I have said kanina, we'll use the sign convention dito because sa LMS, we need to we cannot input unit or para definition niya dyan. So, sa exam natin, I will allow the moment tawagin nating negative 22.98 newtons meter. But again, no? But I have said that huwag nyo nang lagyan ng unit sa exam nyo. Ito na lang yung numerical value. Yan. Wala na ito, no? Huwag nyo nang lagyan ng unit kasi ibibigay ko naman siya sa problem ano. Okay? Yes? Now, there's another way to this, no? Tinatawag natin siyang analytical solution. Sometimes, sa sobrang komplikado ng orientation ng force natin at the point of interest, sometimes medyo mahirap isolve yung perpendicular distance silang dalawa, no? Sometimes mahirap talaga. So, sa statics of rigid bodies, the very advisable solution is to, basta incline yung force natin, is to resolve the force. Okay? So, let's say, i-resolve natin itong 10 Newton force into components. Tawagin natin siyang Fx and Fy. Okay? So, we already discussed how to resolve the force into components, Fx and Fy. So, dito, dapat alam din natin yung transmissibility of the force. Now, these components can act anywhere, no? Anywhere as long as nasa line of action sa force. So, since we want the distances of the force at the point A, I will orient these components dito sa B. Yan, transfer ko siya sa B. So that dito, yung distance, perpendicular distance of Fy to A is 3 meters. Okay? Now, yung Fx naman, perpendicular distance niya to A is 0. Kuha ba? Yung perpendicular ng distance of Fx to A is 0. Directly pointing yan kay A. That means, yung magkukos ng rotation about point A is the Fy lang. Magkukos siya ng rotation clockwise. Okay? Yung Fx cannot cause rotation at point A. Because again nga, that is directly pointing at A, yung line of action ng horizontal force Fx. Okay? Or basically, wala siyang perpendicular distance to the point A or the point of interest. Okay? So, ito yung mas advisable solution natin. Kasi kung hahanapin natin yung geometrical perpendicular distance natin sa specific point, sometimes mahirap siya and mag-iisip ka pa. Okay, whereas dito, kailangan mo lang i-resolve yung inclined force into components, then just calculate the horizontal distances and the vertical distances. Okay? So, i-solve natin to using this approach. Okay. Let's say this is or another solution. Or we can have the moment at A. As you can see there, the Fy, okay, imagine nyo, yung Fy will cause clockwise rotation about point A. Tama? About point A. So, lagyan ko na lang siya ng tawag dito, sign, no? That is Fy times yung distance niya, or that distance, by the way, we call that moment arc, no? distance niya through through A is 3 meters. Okay? The distance of this Fy through A is 3 meters. Now, yung Fx naman, plus Fx, but we know that we don't have perpendicular distance of Fx to point A. So, 0 siya. Or again, Fx cannot cause rotation at A. I hope that is clear now. So, basically, yung force lang dito is yung Fy, MA. Again, yung Fy natin, paano ngayon i-resolve? Yung Fy is, ano yan? 10. That would be sine. Sine of 50 degrees. Diba? Ito yung Fy natin. Multiply natin by the moment arm 3 and that gives us MA equal 22.981. That would be the same sa dito. Okay? 22.981. Again, unit for this is Newton meter. Similar siya ng unit sa work or energy. No? Ang kaibahan lang dito sa moment and work is that sa work, yung distance natin na i-multiply sa force is yung parallel distance niya. No? Whereas sa moment, yung distance na i-multiply natin sa force is perpendicular distance sa kanya. Gets ba? Again, negative yan. Pwede natin siyang sabihin or MA. Gamitin natin yung absolute 22.98 Newton meter. Then, lagyan ng apelyido. Clockwise. Okay? Yan. Gets ba? Gets nyo lang ba yung ating solution? Okay, so screenshot nyo muna then may another example tayo. Okay lang ba kayo? Di ba kayo nalilito? So dito, hindi pa siya komplikado kasi isang force pa yung nilagay natin. Later on, many forces acting on a body, medyo mahirap na siya. Constant ang negative ang Fy, sir. Hindi ha? Hindi. Again, lagyan natin siya ng negative. Hindi yung force yung kinoconsider natin dyan for the sign of movement. Yung rotation. Nilagyan natin yan ng negative 10 sine 50 degrees because we can see that this force Fy will cause clockwise rotation at A. Okay? Clockwise rotation. Hindi yan ibig sabihin na negative yung Fy. That negative alone, yan na yung indication natin na this force Fy will cause clockwise rotation about point A. Kasi for example, may force tayo dito. Example lang. For example, may force tayo dito and that is downward. Okay? And we want to calculate the moment produced by this force about point A. Imagine nyo ano yung rotation. So that will rotate counterclockwise. Okay? That will rotate counterclockwise about point A. Therefore, yung moment natin dyan, since that is counterclockwise, it will cause rotation counterclockwise. Even the force is going down, but the moment, the indication of the sign of the moment should be based on the rotation, not the orientation of the force. Okay, so the moment produced by this F about A is positive na. Huwag mo nang lagyan ng negative. Dito, yung Fy, kaya nilagyan natin ng negative kasi we know that this Fy will cause rotation, will cause clockwise rotation about point A. Okay? So, para mas maintindihan, let's have another example. Okay, from this, lagyan natin ng additional forces. Ayan. Dito naman, calculate the resultant moment at C. Okay? At C, dito, yung force dito, yung ating, yung resultant moment at C, yung isosolve natin. Resultant moment, that means that would be the summation of all the moment produced by that forces in this body. Okay? So how do we do that? I-erase ko muna yung solution natin. So again, moment is force times distance. So dito, since marami yung forces natin, we can actually say that the resultant moment at C and let's call that MC na lang, no? The resultant moment at C, that would be, or let's say, resultant moment at C. Tawagin na lang natin ganyan. Is equal, must be equal to the summation of the moment produced by the forces there. Okay? So, paano natin siya isolve? Isa-isahin natin. Let's, tawag dito. Unahin na lang natin yung moment na maidudulot ng 20 Newton force about C. Okay? So again, advice natin, basta incline yung forces, resolve siya into components. Yan. Ilagay ko lang dito kasi mas madali natin kunin yung distances. Again, pwede natin ilagay yung component dito if gusto mo, no? But you need to calculate the distance niya about the point of interest. Yung point of interest natin is C, so kailangan natin itong kunin. Perpendicular distance niya to Fy. And kailangan din natin itong kunin, perpendicular distance niya to Fx. Okay? And we know that wala tayong definite length of the force, no? Wala tayong definite length of the force. So, pwede mo siyang assume ng any value but that is not already advisable. Lagay mo yung component mo kung saan makakakuha ka ng distances. Okay? So, kaya dito natin nilagay yung Fy and Fx. Now, as I have said, that will be summation of the moment. So, MRC is equals. So, ano yung rotation na maidudulot ng 20 Newton load? By the way, i-resolve natin siya into Fy and Fx. So, unahin natin si Fy. Ano yung moment na makukos niya about C? That would be clockwise rotation. Okay, so we'll treat that one as negative. Tama? So, that is negative of Fy. Again, yung Fy natin, i-direction natin ha. That is 20 Newton sine of 50 degrees. Yan. Fy pa lang yan. I-multiply natin ng moment arm na distance ng Fy to point C is kalahati niya, which is 1.5. Perpendicular distance. I hope that is clear. No? So, multiply by 1.5 meters. Tama? How about yung Fx? Yung Fx is directly pointing to the point of interest. So, it cannot produce rotation. Okay? So, wag na lang natin isali yan para hindi masyadong mahaba. So, 0 yung moment na matudulot ng Fx at C. So, punta tayo sa 10 Newton load that is pointing upward. So, what would be the sign? Okay, look at this one. This force, this 10 Newton force is upwards. But the moment it produces about C, that can rotate about point C, clockwise rotation. That means we'll treat again that moment as negative. Okay? And its distance from point C is 0.5 meters. So that would be negative again, negative moment. No? Hindi force, ha? Negative moment. Negative 10 times 0.5. Its distance through point C. Okay? Now finally, the last force that will cause rotation at C is this another 10 Newton load that is downwards. No? But again, the sign convention is based on its rotation. Ano yung rotation na makukos ng 10 Newton load na ito about point C? That would be counterclockwise. Okay? And again, we treat counterclockwise rotation as positive moment. Tama? And yung distance niya is 1.5 meters. Klaro? Okay. So, that would be again plus 10 Newton. Again, counterclockwise yan, kaya plus siya. Ang moment arm niya is 1.5 meters. Okay, yung distance dyan, we call that moment arm. So therefore, the resultant moment about C is equals to negative 12.981 Newton meters. Klaro ba? Negative. Or we can say, we can just use the absolute 12.981 Newton meter. That would be counterclockwise. I mean clockwise kasi negative siya. Okay? So again, no? Pwede iba yung assumption nyo, no? Pwede positive yung clockwise, negative yung counterclockwise. No? But for uniformity natin, gamitin natin yung counterclockwise as positive because that is for angle in standard position and clockwise as negative. Nagets ba? Do you understand this one, the moment? The principle of a moment. Hindi kayo nalilito. So, there's another way to this rin, no? May isang principle tayo dito na masyadong gamit na gamit. Isang principle. So, ano yun? So, we can have another solution, no? Or, the same pa rin dito, but, okay, notice this one. Pag yung dalawang force is parallel, okay, pag may nakita kayong dalawang force parallel to each other and equal magnitude of the force but opposite in direction. Okay, ito. 10 Newton and 10 Newton are equal. They are parallel. Tama? They are separated by a distance 1 meter. Okay? Opposite in direction. So we call this force as couple force. Okay? Couple. So the same magnitude but opposite in direction. So sa couple force, that will also create a couple moment. By the way, ito yung resultant moment natin. Clockwise rotation yung nakuha natin. So that MRC. So dito MC yung nilagay ko. So again, basta may nakita kayong equal magnitude of a force but opposite in direction, that will produce couple. Okay? So for example, ito yung force natin. So as you notice that these forces creates clockwise, counterclockwise rotation. At a distance d, it produces counterclockwise moment. Okay? Pwede rin ganito yung makikita natin, basta parallel sila, then it will produce clockwise moment. Or kahit ganito yung orientation, as long as they are both parallel. Okay? So in this case, ano yung rotation? Dapat nyo ma-imagine yung rotation. Okay? That would be clockwise moment. Okay? So ano yung gamit dito? Ano yung gamit if alam natin yung principle of a couple moment? So gamitin natin sa example. So notice, ito siya, itong 10 Newton, 10 times 0.5 and 10 times 1.5, that are the moment produced at point C, produced by this 10 Newton force. Okay? So pwede pala nating sabihin that the moment about R, the resultant moment about C is equals, pwede natin itong kapihin. I-copy ko to up to here. Okay? Ito yung force na maidudulot ng 20 Newton. Moment na maidudulot ng 20 Newton at C. No? So, these two forces are couple force. So, pwede natin siyang diretsohin yung moment dito. Dito, ginawa natin is inisa-isa natin. Whereas, pag alam natin yung principle of the moment, couple moment, pwede natin siyang isahin. Notice here that this couple force creates counterclockwise moment. Okay? So we treat counterclockwise as positive. And the tawag dito yung couple force will produce just a couple moment that is equals to its magnitude, which is 10. Again, plus yung ginamit natin kasi yung dalawang force na yan will cause, tawag dito, counterclockwise. Yung distance naman nilang dalawa is 1 meter. Okay? So that the resultant moment at C is equals to the same pa rin siya, negative 12.981 newtons meter. Okay? Or we may say that the resultant moment about C is equals to positive, okay? Positive magnitude, but lagyan natin siya ng apelyido, clockwise. Acceptable yan. Naintindihan nyo ba? Okay? Again, basta may couple force, automatically, the moment produced by this couple is equals to, okay, tawagin natin siyang MC, is automatically equals to force times the distance between the two. Okay? Automatically. Actually, pwede mo siyang hatiin. Hatiin yung dalawa. So, F times D over 2 plus F times D over 2. But it will give us the same lang na moment is equals to force times the distance. Questions? Questions? Di ba kayo nalilito? Pwede kayong mag-ask ng questions about moment. So, this is a very important principle, no? Yung moment sa engineering. Applicable to lahat, electrical, mechanical, civil, ano pa ba yung ibang engineering? I don't know sa computer engineering if applicable ito, no ba? Basta more on producing structures. This is very important. Do you have questions? You can ask questions. Currently 33 viewers, no? But I know 50 yung ating students. What if lahi og forcer? Pwede ba na niya makapol sila? Kung iba-iba na yung force, we cannot call that couple, no? Hindi natin siya pwede itiretso. Okay? Definition of couple force, dapat equal yung magnitude. Dapat equal yung magnitude. Gets ba? Kung lahi yung iba yung force ng isa, let's say we can say 15, so we cannot do directly that solution. Dapat same magnitude and parallel but opposite in direction. We call that couple forces. Okay, so may isang example pa tayo dito which can answer that question na parang mas magiging clear yung question mo doon. Okay. Ito. May nagtatrabaho sa ibang bahay. Okay. How about this one? This wood connection is loaded with the following forces, as you can see here. No? Determine the resultant force of the system and its location from point A. Bakit ko to? Dapat dito mauna. Okay, dapat ito yung mauna. Ito muna. Okay, a 6-meter beam shown are loaded with the parallel forces given. Ito, parallel forces. F1, we have F2, we have F3, we have F4. Okay, and its location, X1 from point A, X2, X3, X4. So, yung tanong dito is determine the resultant of the forces and its location from point A. So, di ba last time we discussed resultant resultant of the force, concurrent force. Yung mga forces na dadaan sa isang point. For example, ito, this force here, ito. So, nag-meet sila sa isang point. But we know that these are parallel forces and they do not meet at same point. At hindi talaga sila mag-meet kasi parallel sila. So, paano natin isi-solve yung resultant niya? And dito, yung location. Okay? So, actually, the same pa rin siya. The same pa rin yung pag-calculate natin sa resultant. Let me just erase this one. Lagyan muna natin ng mga givens. Tawagin ko tong R. Okay, resultant nila. And let's say that the location niya at point A is Bardex. Ayan. Tinawag ko siyang Bardex. Okay, so bakit ko nasabing pag ganyan yung resultant? Assume muna natin, no, na vertically downward. But by investigation, no, by just investigation the given, sure tayo na the resultant R would be vertical talaga. Kasi vertical yung mga forces dyan. Okay? So, lagyan ko muna ng givens. Okay, nilagyan ko lang ng mga givens. So, by the way, dito, resultant force for parallel forces, the same pa rin siya ng concept. Resultant force. Dito, we can say that the resultant force R is equals the summation of forces vertical. Kasi vertical naman yung mga forces dito. Okay? Kung may inclined forces, i-resolve natin siya into Fy and Fx, or vertical and horizontal forces. Okay? So dito, since they are all vertical, we can just say that the resultant force is just the sum of all the forces. Vertical forces. Okay? Therefore, dito, the resultant force R is equal. So lahat ng forces, unahin natin itong 5 newtons. Okay? Unahin natin itong 5 newtons. Assume tayo positive. I will just say positive upward. No? Assume ako ng positive upwards. But ito, again, ito yung gagamitin natin, upward force. Basta force yung consider natin, positive. Basta downward siya, basta force, upward, positive. Basta force, downwards, negative. No, but iba sa moment. Okay? Yung titingnan natin sa moment is the rotation. Hindi yung orientation ng force. Okay, so lahat ng upward force we treat as positive. So since this 5 kilonewton force is going down, so that is minus 5. Okay? Then another 5 kilonewtons going up, plus 5. Actually, mag-cancel lang sila, no? Another force going down, which is 8, minus 8. Okay? Then another force going down, minus 10. Okay? So, it gives us a negative 18 unit is kilonewton. Yung R natin dyan is negative 18. Or we can say that R is the absolute value of that, 18 kilonewtons, but that is down. I'll just say downwards. Okay? Downwards. So, ito na yung magiging resultant force natin dyan. Now, how about calculating the location niya from point A? Ito, Bardex. Paano natin siya isolve? So, yung principle dito is the Varignon's theorem. Okay? Varignon's theorem yan, guys. Paano ba ito? Paano natin siya i-feed para mas ganito yan. Principle. I'll just say the principle, ha? Principle. Para ma-locate natin yung force dyan, okay? Yung Bardex of R at point A, pwede natin gamitin yung principle of the moment. Ano yung principle ng moment na gagamitin natin? we can say that the moment produced by this R towards A must be equals to the moment produced by these forces at A. Okay? Ano yung ibig sabihin? I-change lang. I-change ko muna siya doon sa variable natin. Okay? Lagyan muna natin siya ng variables. So, yung ibig sabihin ng principle na yan, the resulting moment R, okay, times bar x, I will just say x bar, okay, is equals to the summation of the moment or the force times its corresponding distances niya about A. Okay? So, dito, specific sample natin about A tayo. So, lahat ng force dyan multiply by bar x, that is equals to, actually, ito yung resulting moment, resultant moment natin. So, we can also say that the moment produced by R about A, okay, the moment of the resultant force at A is equals to the summation of the moment of the forces dito. Okay? Diba? Force times distance. Moment yan. Tama? Ito rin, yung force times distance, moment rin yan. So, in-equate lang natin yung kabuuang moment na magagawa ng resultant force and yung sum of moments na magagawa ng individual forces. Yan yung concept dyan. So, may tawag dito na principle. Ito yung Varignon's theorem. Tinatawag natin tong Varignon's theorem. Yan. Varignon's theorem yung tawag dyan. So, sinimplify na lang yung Varignon's theorem as let's say I mean R times X bar, yan, is equals to F1 times X1 plus F2 times X2. Ito yung sum of the moment. Plus F3 times X sub 3 and plus so on. Kung ilang forces yung nandyan. Ito yung Varignon's theorem. Or calculating the X bar or the location of the resultant force, X bar is equals to this one divided by the resultant force. Ito yung Varignon's theorem. Okay? Actually, ito yung principle rin sa pag-calculate ng centroid sa integral. Okay? So, let's try to use this one in calculating the R. I mean, yung bar x. Gagamitin natin yung Varignon's theorem. So, lagyan ulit natin ng events. Yun. Kailang? I-move ko lang siya, ha? Nakuha naman natin yung resultant force. Dito, kukunin na natin yung ating X bar. Okay. So, again, no? Calculating the, let's say, the location, X bar. Tinawag ko na lang siyang X bar kasi I cannot put subscript dito, no? Yan, tawagin ko siyang X bar. So again, no? Pwede nating unahin. Kunin na lang natin yung resultant moment at A. Diba? That would be the summation of the moment produced by that individual forces dito. That 5 kilonewton, 10 kilonewton, 8 kilonewton and 10 kilonewton dyan. Okay? Let's say, unahin ko to. Unahin ko yung moment na madudulot ng 5 kilonewton about A. So again, basta moment, yung sign is based on the rotation. So this 5 kilonewton creates clockwise about A. Okay? So, therefore, the moment resultant at A, again, inisa-isa ko lang to, ha, Varignon's theorem itong ginagawa natin, equal, tawag dito, minus, kasi clockwise siya, 5 times 1. Okay? By the way, May napansin ba kayo dito? Diretsohin na lang natin. Look at this one. This force is 5 kilonewton. Another force, 5 kilonewton. Tama? They are parallel to each other and opposite in direction. That means these are couple force. Okay? So, pwede na natin siyang diretsoin. Huwag natin isa-isahin. Tama? So, kunin lang natin yung distance ng dalawa. So, the moment produced by this couple force, anywhere yan, no? Kahit saan sa body natin. So, we can put that A. Okay? So, the moment produced by this couple force is, ano yung rotation niya? That is counterclockwise. Diretso na lang natin na para hindi mahaba yung solution. So, we can say, tanggalin ko na lang to. Again, pwede isa-isahin mo. But since we know that these are couple forces, so pwede natin sabihin, 5 times the distance between the two. Positive. I hope that is clear. Now, another one. This 8 kilonewton force will cause, ano yung rotation na madudulot niya? About 8. That is clockwise rotation. So that would be, we treat that one as negative moment. So the moment is 8 times its distance to A is 3.5. Okay? Next force, huwag mong isali yung resultant. Okay? Yung resultant dyan is just the kabuuang force niya. But basta kunin natin yung summation of the moment. Ito lang, yung original forces involved dito. Okay? So again, this 10 kilonewton force creates, tawag dito, clockwise moment. Distance niya is 5.8. So minus pa rin tayo. Minus 10 times 5.8 newtons. I hope that is clear. Okay? Again, pwede mong isa-isahin ito. Huwag mo siyang gawing couple. Pero masyado na siyang mahaba yung solution natin. I'll just do this one. So, negative 81 kilonewton meter. Okay? Negative indicates that the, tawag dito? Negative indicates that the moment is rotating clockwise. Okay? So, we can say, kunin na lang natin m dot RA, the resultant moment at A is equal to 81 absolute kilonewton meter, and that rotates clockwise. Again, this is the resultant moment at A. Ito yung equate natin sa moment na mapuproduce ng ating R at A. No, di ba? The moment produced by R at A is still clockwise. So, negative pa rin siya. Gets ba? Negative pa rin siya. So, the moment produced by R at A is R times the bar X, or R times X bar. Ito yung equate natin sa moment, resultant moment of all the forces about A. Yan. So, bali, equate natin to dito. So, of course, may nakuha na tayong tawag dito, R. May nakuha na tayong R. So, gagamitin na lang natin yung absolute moment, no? Kaya lagyan ko na lang siya ng absolute dito clockwise and absolute R. Distance kasi yung kukunin natin. No? So, dito, by the way, ano yung R natin? R is negative 18 kilonewtons. Okay? So, gagamitin lang natin yung absolute kasi distance, we want to calculate distance as absolute. Pero pwede, lagyan mo yan ng negative sign. Ano? Isipin mo yung rotation niya. Clockwise siya, negative moment, not the sign. Okay? Huwag yung lagyan ng sign. Tingnan mo yung rotation niya. So, dito, X bar is equals to the MRA, which is 81, divided by the moment produced by, the resultant force R. That is 4.5 meters. Gets? Okay, tanong. Nag-gets nyo ba? Anong muna? Before we have another example. Balik natin yung solution. Ito siya. Again, itong ginawa natin dito is the Varignon's theorem. Okay, Varignon's theorem yung ginawa natin. Ito yan. R times x bar equals fx or uh, R moment resultant at A summation of force of moment. Ito lang yun, no? Nag-gets nyo ba? Wala ba kayong tanong? Dapat maintindihan nyo to, no? Kasi sa mga next topics natin, lalo-lalo na sa mga complicated topics, dapat mahasa mo muna yung sarili mo dito sa moments before we'll be solving complex problem in mechanics. Kung hindi nyo to alam, siguradong during your strength of material subject, reinforced concrete, yung mga higher subject nyo, siguradong mahihirapan talaga kayo. And kayo yung magsasuffer, no? Lalong-lalo na if yung mindset nyo talaga is maging engineer kayo. Kayo yung magsasuffer. Whereas, kung kopya ka lang ng kopya sa tawag dito, sa mga classmates mo, I tell you, no? I'll tell you frankly, uh, you are not deserving na maging engineer. Frankly saying talaga. Kung hindi mo talaga alam ito, hindi ko kayo dinidiscourage but I am telling you what is the reality. Dapat mag-aral talaga kayo kasi engineering kayo. No? Hindi, um, talagang hindi kayo I would not say na hindi kayo mag-excel, but maybe, kung hindi ito para sa inyo, you will excel to another field, no? Yung iba, I do not generalize this one. Okay, napasermon pa tayo, but yan yung sinasabi ko na lang yung totoo, no? Mabuti na yung may nagsabi sa inyo na dito or may nag-advise na sa inyo before pa lang na nasa higher years na kayo, baka tawag dito, um, pagsisihan nyo yung napasukan nyo ba. Okay? But anyway, may chance pa naman, may room tayong lahat for improvement. So, basta gawin nyo lang yung part nyo, then wala talagang problema. Kahit mahirap gawin nyo yung part nyo. Wala bang tanong? So, proceed ako ng another example. Yung couple. Yung couple. Ay hala, 0.5 yan. Tama, tama. Yung couple, bakit 1 meter? Tama, 0.5 pala yung distance ng dalawa. Sorry. Tama guys, 0.5. 0.5, hindi ko napalitan yung moment arc. 0.5 yan ha, couple moment. Change ko lang. Sorry for that. Yan. Yung couple, ito, that is 0.5. Okay, thank you for noticing the error. So, 83.5. May nagtratrabaho dito. Okay, so this is 83.5. Sorry for that. Ito dapat yung sagot. Okay? Another example tayo para mas maintindihan. Yung kanina. Okay, ito. Can you hear the, may nagtatrabaho ngayon sa kapitbahay? Naririnig ko ba? Okay, maybe this will be our last example for today. Then I will give you tawag dito, activity. Just erase this one. Yes, sabihon. Sir nga ng 5 kilonewtons. Bakit? Ano yung tanong mo, Jebi Abila sabihon? Is your question? Tanong ba? Kung naghahanap kayo ng mga mga materials, statics of rigid bodies, engineering mechanics, sali kayo sa mga CE group, no? Yung mga CE study group. Marami silang mga materials na ina-upload doon. Pwede kayong kumuha ng mga materials doon, no? Maraming mga PDF. I advise you na sumali kayo sa mga CE study group. Yung CBEP, no? Civil Engineering Board Exam Problem. Philippines, maraming mga materials doon. Pwede rin yung CE Board Exam Study Group. Doon kayo kumuha ng mga materials. Marami. Basta masipag lang kayong ukit-ukit na mga files nila doon. Hanapin niyo yung mga engineering mechanics. Okay? So, erase ko na to. Nakopy niyo na ba ito? So, ito yung first resultant force natin. Ito yung answer. Or, again, sa exam natin, kailangan natin ng sign. Wag yung apelyido niya. No? Kung sa physical class lang sana, then this is understandable. Acceptable siya. But since we are using a software, LMS, so dapat may sign tayo. Wala nang unit. No? May nakita ko sa inyo, sa classmate nyo, ilalagyan ng unit. No? But mali pa rin naman yung sagot niya, but ilagyan na niya ng unit, magkakamali pa rin yun. Huwag yun ang lagyan ng unit sa exam. Okay? So, resultant force, ito yung first problem, resultant force. And ito naman ang ating location, X bar. Okay? So, erase ko na to. Let's have this last problem. Right. Okay. The wood connection shown is loaded with the following forces. Determine the resultant force of the system and its location from point A. Okay, location from point A. Okay, before we start, pag may nakita kayong inclined force, again, kunin natin yung components nila, no? Para hindi mahirap. Yan. Let's say this is F1x and F1y. Sabihin ko na lang ganyan. Okay? Ito walang problema kasi mga vertical and horizontal force naman sila. And notice then that we have a couple force. So automatically, diretso na yung susundin natin dito. Yung couple moment. Okay? So, kunin natin yung resultant force muna. Unahin natin yung resultant force. Okay. Resultant force. So, since may horizontal at vertical tayo, kunin muna natin yung resultant along x. Tawagin natin resultant along x. That is summation of the force along horizontal or sabihin natin x. And let be assuming positive to the right. Positive to the right tayo. Okay? Positive to the right. So lahat ng right force dyan is positive. Lahat ng to the left is negative. Okay, so we now have, dito, unahin natin yung F1x. Okay, so Rx, F1x, diretso na natin ha. By the way, para masolve natin yung component dyan, dapat may dito. Hypotenuse tayo ng right triangle na yan. Kunin natin yung hypotenuse, then that is square root of 13. Okay, square root of 13. So yung component F1x is 3 over the hypotenuse. 3 over square root of 13 over the square root of 13. Positive yan, okay? We are talking about forces going to the right, positive. Times the force is 10 kilonewtons. Okay? How about this one? Ito, vertical to. Huwag natin yang isipin muna. Lahat ng mga horizontal forces, this one and that one. Basically, magka-cancel out lang sila, no? Kahit ilagay pa natin. Unahin natin tong to the left, negative, minus 12. Then to the right, plus 12. Magka-cancel out lang sila. And ito yung Rx natin. Okay, of course, unit dyan is kilonewtons. Force kasi yan. Then, kunin naman natin yung Y. Summation, the resultant force along Y is the summation of forces along Y or the summation of forces along vertical. So, unahin natin ito. Lagyan muna natin positive upward. Okay? Positive upwards tayo. Okay, sa lahat ng upward force, positive. And vice versa. So, F1y, that is going down. So, we have, for F1y, yung component natin is 2 over square root of 13 times 10. Ayaw, wala na problema dyan, no? So, minus 2 over square root of 13 times 10. Okay? Another one, this 5 kilonewton is downwards. So, minus 5 kilonewton. So, yan lang. Yan yung magiging Ry natin. So, negative for downward, positive for upward. I mean, positive dito sa Rx for going to the right. So, the resultant force, R, is equals to the square root of Rx squared plus Ry squared. So, hindi ko na lang ilagay yung values dyan. We have that one. So, of course, absolute value yung makukuha natin resultant force dito kasi naka-squared sila. No? So, dito, indicator ito yung force natin. Kung titingnan natin dito, indicator, ito yung Rx, Ry is downward. Then, the force should be oriented in this manner. Okay? Yung force natin is oriented in that manner. Pwede natin kunin itong alpha, no? Kunin na lang muna natin yung alpha by triangles kasi magagamit din natin yan later on. So, yung angle alpha is equals to arc tangent, no? Arc tangent of ano yung Ry natin? Ry is this one, 10.547 divided by Rx, 8.321. That is equals to 51. That is rotating clockwise. Huwag muna nating lagyan ng unit, no? Yung gusto natin dito is yung location niya. Sir, paano yan, no? Naka-incline yung force natin. So, if ilalagay natin to dito, okay? Assume natin ito yung R. Andito, no? We do not know yet saan yan mag-locate, no? But assume ko muna na ganyan. Okay, paano yon? Let's say ito yung distance niya, location niya through A. Tawagin ko siyang DA. Okay? Tinawag ko siyang DA. Assumption pa lang natin yan na ganyan yung orientation. Yung moment na maidudulot ng resultant force about A must be equals to the moment produced by all of these forces about A. Okay? So, kunin muna natin yung resultant moment at A, then equate natin sa R times dA. Tama? So, dito, by the way, ito yung sagot natin sa, no? Sa resultant force, but for the, dito, the location, kunin muna natin yung resultant moment at A. Tawagin siyang MRA. So that is equal to summation of the moment produced by the forces there. Or we can, ganyan na lang, no? So, MRA is equal. So, unahin muna natin itong 10 kilonewton force. So, again, since gi-resolve na natin siya, just neglect that one. Yung titingnan na lang natin is yung component dyan. Unahin natin si F1x. Okay? Unahin natin si F1x. Now, yung moment na ma-produce ng F1x about A, as you can see, that is rotating clockwise. Okay? Yung distance naman niya is 400. So, yung moment niya should be negative F1x times 400. Okay? So, negative, ano nga yung F1x natin? Diretso lang natin. Actually, ito yung F1x, no? Kuha ko lang ha. Component yan ng 10 kilonewton force. This is our F1x. Negative F1x. Yung distance naman natin, through A is 400. mm yan, no? Next, yung F1y. Look at the F1y. Ano yung moment na madudulot ng F1y through A? Notice that F1y directly pointing to the point of interest. So, walang moment na ma-produce dyan because of this F1y. So, hindi natin siya isasali. Diretso tayo kay 5 kilonewton. Now, notice nyo, yung 5 kilonewton produce clockwise moment about A. So, negative pa rin tayo. Okay? And its distance, perpendicular distance through A, dapat perpendicular ha. Ito yung force natin, perpendicular distance niya, dapat pa ganyan. Okay? Ganyan, perpendicular distance. So, that is 190 plus 155 yung perpendicular distance niya. So, that is minus, kasi nag-rotate tayo ng clockwise. 5 kilonewton, 190 plus 155. Okay? Now, these 12 kilonewtons, as you can see, they are coupled force. No? So, imagine nyo na lang, ano yung rotation niya na i-cause na rotation. So, as you can see, that will cause counterclockwise. No? Iikot siya pa counterclockwise. So, we'll treat that one as positive. Okay? Positive yan. So, plus 12 times the distance between the two is 120. So, yan yung magiging moment natin about A. Okay? The resultant moment of the force about A is yan. Unit dito kasi naka-kilonewton naman tayo. Kilonewton millimeters. Okay? Kilonewtons millimeter. Now, ito yung by the way, negative, but kung lagyan natin siya na indication, that is positive na lang, but rotates clockwise. Okay? Rotating clockwise. Now, ito yung i-equate natin sa moment, sa R, that will produce moment at A. So, no? Okay. So, magiging ganito yan. The R times yung distance na location natin, tinawag ko siyang dA na lang, no? Distance of R through A, yan yung equate natin sa moment, resultant moment at A. Again, ito yung Varinions theorem. Inisa-isa lang natin. Kinuha lang muna natin itong part na ito. Diba? Ito yung equals to the summation of force times the distance niya, x or y. At tawagin na lang siyang para mas general, f times d. Okay? So again, yung dA yung gusto natin kunin. May R na tayo by the way. Nasolve na natin yung resultant force R is 434. Therefore, the location of the resultant force at A, tawagin siyang dA, is equals to MRA, ito, MRA, which is this one, divided by the R, which is 13 point. And we have 268.96. Of course, the unit for this is in millimeters. Okay? Gets? Ayos lang? Question muna, then I will leave tawag dito. Copy nyo muna. Balik ko siya ha. Ito. First slide. Then, the last one is ito. Three gid na, sir. Sige, 3. Ano yung 3? 3 gid na, sir. Ito. Ano yung ibig mong sabihin? Kanang negative 3 over square root of 13. Okay, ito. 3 yan. Kasi yung moment na tinutukoy natin dyan is yung fx, f1x. Tama? Ito. Ito man yung yung component of the force na magpapaikot about A. Itong F1y, hindi naman yan iikot. Di ba pagkuha ng component basta may triangle tayo, ito? Just do the ito, horizontal yung kunin natin. So, horizontal 3 over the hypotenuse. Kung vertical naman, ito, vertical over the hypotenuse. Yung pagkuha ng component. So, 3 siya dapat. Ito yung diniscuss natin sa first, I think that was first meeting. Okay? So, ito. May activity kayo. Good for 15 minutes. Calculate the ito, last ha. Activity nyo good for 15 minutes. Up to 3. Until 3 lang ito ha. Calculate the location of the resultant force at point B. Okay? Since nakuha naman natin yan, madali na lang sila. Kuha na natin yung R. Activity ito ha. Isulat nyo lang sa clean paper, then i-take nyo yung photo, then isend nyo sa ating LMS. Calculate location of the resultant from point B. Yan. Okay? Until 3 p.m. Start na kayo ngayon. Until 3 p.m. Madali na lang yan kasi nakuha naman natin yung R. Yung concept na lang dito is isolve nyo yung moment, summation of moment or this resultant moment at B. Okay? get your papers, then solve mo yan. Okay, so ilagay natin dito. Ito yan, oh. Yung distance niya. Perpendicular siya dapat. Yung dB. Ito siya. dB. Calculate nyo yan. Ano yung location yan. Actually, pwede mo naman siyang mas-solve through geometry. Yan. Kung pwede mo siyang i-solve through geometry. Just give the idea, no? Ito. Diba, parallel to sila dapat kasi perpendicular sila sa force. dB. So, i-solve mo yan through geometry. So, magaling ka sa geometry or solve mo yan using the same way na ginawa natin. Okay, so I will end now our lecture, no? If wala ng question, then until 3 p.m., pass nyo sa LMS. Maglalagay ako doon ng slot kung saan nyo siya ipapas. Okay? So, that's it for this lecture. I hope nakinig talaga kayo and may natutunan kayo dito.